Hi, and welcome back to another episode of aNERDspective, where I, Tony from aNERD Gallery, sit down with friends all over the world to talk and to learn new perspectives around Indonesian textile arts. And today, I'll be talking to Novi from Cinta Bumi Artisans, who specializes in barkcloth as well as eco-print. And we are going to talk about sustainability in the production process and the barkcloth culture itself. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy Novi's aNERDspectives. Welcome, Novi, to today's session of aNERDspective. How are you doing? How's Bali?
I'm doing good. Bali started to shine some sunlight. How are you, Tony?
Doing pretty good. In Singapore, it's on and off, both rain and sun. So it's pretty unpredictable at the moment.
Yeah, monsoon.
Yeah. So I found out about Cinta Bumi Artisans through one of the makers talk, and then I went and found out more. And then you're working with barkcloth as well as eco prints. Those are kind of like, I would say, like two very different concepts. Like one is like traditional heritage, one is relatively new technique. And yeah, I wanted to find out more about your journey and your practices. And perhaps we can start with a little introduction about who Novi is and your journey in leading to Cinta Bumi Artisans.
Sure. So my name is Novieta. You can simply call me Novi. I am an artisan and natural dyer, and I would consider myself as a home gardener. So my journey in artisanal craftswomanship is actually, I don't have any background in textile art or in fashions, like academically, but I was studying tourism. And then I was a tourism practitioner for about 10 years before shifted my path to textile and fibers. But I think one of the main reasons that I started to shift to this path was that because through all the travels, the journey that I had during my work in tourism, I had this amazing opportunity, meeting some artisans, weavers, dyers, and then as I traveled to West Sumatra, that's where my maternal family lineage come from, I began to learn that actually my first, second, and third great-grandmothers were songket weavers. So it was kind of like something that is reconnecting to my ancestral path. So I can't weave songket yet, but that's like a dream that I hope to learn. And then I started to build Cinta Bumi Artisans. The embryo started about in 2013, but then our work with the barkcloth makers was actually just launched 3 years later in 2016.
I see. Okay. And how do you get in touch with all these different weavers? The barkcloth artisans.
Barkcloth, yeah. And well, it's back to my my practice in tourism. I was actually back in 2013 helping a friend in Poso in Central Sulawesi, and so I went there to help arranging how to make a community-based ecotourism in that area. And so one of the things that we did was actually survey and research mainly on the intangible cultural heritage. So I went to Lorelindo National Parks, Bada Valleys, and that's where, where the barkcloth culture and traditions are still alive. And so I lived with these mother artisans at their home, and then learning how to actually making this barkcloth. So long story short, the projects in the community-based ecotourism was finalizing, but then my relationship with them just evolved into this kind of I believe nothing is coincidence, but as I started Cinta Bumi Artisans, then this just go really naturally. And then we worked together, started with 2 mother artisans. And apparently we just found out that previously we thought it was only 2 people who can still make barkcloth. But the truth is that they still can practice, but a lot of their equipment and tools were either sold to museums or sold to other people like collectors from other countries. And so they no longer really practice it on a daily basis. So unless somebody come to order for barkcloth wedding attires, like from their neighbors or their relatives, then they're not making it regularly.
Yeah, probably can you share a little bit more about this barkcloth culture? Because I myself is I'm not very familiar with it.
Yeah. In Central Sulawesi itself, the materials that we used for making barkcloth was actually there were 18 species of plants. And the source is limited, but we found some of the materials of the barkcloth that are quite. I mean, I'm quite. I have the courage to say that it's one of the most sustainable materials because it grows just like bamboo, the paper mulberry plants. So they grow like a clump, and then the more you actually harvest at the right time with the right method, then they're actually regenerating into more and more clumps like the bamboos itself. But the culture itself, it's been centuries living in Central Sulawesi for the barkcloth making. And one of the barkcloth that they have called Bea or Evo is actually the exact same barkcloth as tapa cloth in the Micronesian islands. In Hawaii, they call it kapa, or in Aotearoa in New Zealand, they call it ote. So it's the exact same. And so this also brought us to learn about the Austronesian migrations, because we all actually connected with people in Taiwan, people in New Zealand, in Micronesians and Sulawesi. They somehow have these common roots and evolve the culture and traditions into what we have now.
Do they still wear it? Because you mentioned that they only order it for special occasions.
Right. Yes. In the past, I think it's in the past century, like since 1930s, they'll no longer wear it as a daily attire, because since cotton and other synthetic materials came and arrived to the island, so now they mainly wear it for weddings, funerals, or like other ceremonials purposes. And it's also interesting to see and listen to their perspectives, like, because just like us, they want to evolve in terms of like clothing and with the climate change, since climate change is real. The Badak Valley is also, they say, it's no longer cool and cold like it used to be. And barkcloth, although it can be really flexible as time goes on, but when it's just newly made, it's kind of like paper. So I have it here. I don't know if you can actually imagine the texture. So this is kind of like a little bit stiff, but after about a couple months, it goes very flexible, just like fabric. So one of the things that they mentioned is that because it can be really hard, they're now going to the rice fields and they don't want to wear attires like that. So, it's just we're in an age where everything is just developed and evolve really fastly, and I think it's just very natural to listen to feedback and their own perspectives on clothing.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And then what do they do after the ceremonies, after the wedding or the funeral?
They actually keep it and keep it within the family. So, for example, if it's wedding attires, they would usually lend. I mean, somebody's from the family who's gonna get married, they will borrow it. So it's always being used, and after a couple of wears, and it depends also on the person who's gonna get married, whether they want to go a nikah adat or they want to just have a modern wedding. So, yeah.
I see. So probably, can you share a little bit more about the process of getting the cloth itself from tree barks to what you have shown earlier?
Yeah. Well, we use it depends on what kind of plants, but usually they use the paper mulberry, the bea barkcloth, or the nunu, which is from the ficus. The color is like this brown color. So first of all, for the bea or paper mulberry, they would cut it without killing the mother tree. So it's a clump, and so after they cut it, it has to be the diameter of 3 to 5 centimeter. So it's not big trees. It's a very small, tiny branch.
Little branch, yeah.
And then they would peel the outer skin. After they peel the outer skin, they would cut the inner layer of the bark and started to wash them and beat them. And there is several stages in the beating process. So first they would use something that called teboba. It's made out of the anau branch. I think it's named Arenga pinnata. And after that, they would wash it again so that the fibers will be more flexible. And they usually fermented it for about overnight or 2 days. This is useful to make all the sap comes out because the sap will be a natural glue to just attach the fibers to each other. And then after that, they continue beating with the stone beater. It's called ike, using the ike from the big stripes to the small stripes, because again, I don't know if you can see the texture. As you can see that some stripes in it. So it makes patterns. And one branch or one whole bark, usually it's 2 meter length and 3 to 5 centimeter diameter. They can make about 50 centimeter by 2 meters. So if they want to make it wider, they would just beat and attach from another bark. And with the sap being a natural glue, it's really good. They don't really need to sew. They don't need any synthetic glue. So you can just beat and make it longer and longer.
Oh, that's really interesting. So all the patterns and textures are already part of the materials itself. So there is no other like decorative steps.
For decorative steps, it's usually done for ceremonial purpose, as I mentioned before, like the weddings. They would hand painted it with all plants, but it's very sacred practice. Actually, in the old days, there were only specific shamans who were allowed to paint on a barkcloth, and it has to be male shamans, not the female. So the female is usually just make the barkcloth, and then the painters are the male. And for the hand painting itself, like the bride attires, we just did it like a couple months ago for an exhibition. It took our partner artisan about 2 months to paint them all. And the reason why it took it so long, because it used native plants and native binder. So it looks like rubber, or looks like, how do you say that? Seperti getah karet. So they will mix it with the color from the plants or the earth pigments. And this natural binder could only stand for about maximum 10 hours. So you have to paint. So every time he wanted to paint, he has to harvest little by little. So yeah, it took it quite a long time to paint it.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds a very intensive work. Are there still a lot of people who is practicing it?
I would say that only less than 5 people still practicing. And I tend to see that the flow of how they pass on these skills and knowledge is actually purely generationally. So let's say if there's a father who's a hand painter on barkcloth, he would pass it on to his sons or like his nephews. So
it must be to the male heir.
To the male, yes. I met some of these gifted intergenerational hand painter, and they're all, that's what they did. Like their grandfathers, their fathers, and then them, and now they're teaching their sons and their nephews. I myself, I'm still learning like how this how do you say how this flow would be sustained like within the community. So not only exclusively as like generational in family lineage. Because what we're sometimes worried is that what if someday no one actually give birth to sons and there are only daughters? Like, would that be something that would stop this practice?
How receptive are they to teach it outside of the families, or is it something that is not in their practice or in their mind?
That is a great question. Because in the barkcloth hand painting practice, I and some of our researcher friends tend to see that they're quite sacred in that practice. So they're not really receptive to like, or not really open to share to other artisans, even though it's from their own tribe or in their own community. So it's only really familial lineage.
I see. Understand. Yeah. Talk about. Okay, and then other than barkcloth, I think you also explore a lot of other different materials, or you visited like different places. And then from what I see are other than barkcloth, the other one is eco prints. So why these two techniques that finally you are concentrating on?
Yeah. For the barkcloth, I think I also mentioned that how I was so fascinated, and I am always fascinated by these fibers because it's one of the oldest fibers in our human clothing history, and it's actually amazing how it's still alive after like centuries, and then a lot of more modern fabrics come true. It's also, I still believe that it has a place where it can shine its light because of its sustainability, characteristics. But for eco printing, that's also the same reason why I was, encouraged to learn about it. And I think first time I learned about it was from the book of the original discoverer, India Flint. She wrote a book about eco-color, and actually during my works in tourism, I was also having these opportunities to learn about batik, about weaving, and other things. And then comes this eco-printing or bundle dyeing as a contemporary method, which I believe it's more sustainable than like doing immersion dyeing because it needs less energy, less water, and to put it in a sustainability context, I think that's like really perfect match. And I started to explore how to connect the barkcloth and the eco print. So I started to make experimenting, like how what if I do eco print on barkcloth. And just recently we came back from Central Sulawesi and just sharing to our partnering artisans like how to do eco prints on their barkcloth, and they're also really interested in that because none of them can do natural dyeing with plants. Only some of them, but they don't really practice the painting. As I also told you, it's also a sacred practice by certain familial lineage. So to give this, to introduce something like this, it's also a part of me feeling that I have learned so much from them. And so I would like to share also the contemporary practice that might be a part of solutions to create some surface design on their own work.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
How's that? How's the progress on that?
Oh, it's amazing. There, especially that I think it's not that they don't know, but there is a phase where all the knowledge, all the skills were just disconnected from 2 generations ago, and so it was not passed on to them. So we're really learning together because I also found plenty of native plants in the Bada Valley that are actually has these pigments and tannins and are not in the book, like in the vocabulary of natural dyes of Indonesia, because it's very specific and only in that area. So we're still in a learning phase on that part, and hopefully, like later this year, we can bring up and more open to show the progress with you too. Yeah.
Yeah, like very, very interesting to combine eco printing on barkcloth. Something that I have not imagined actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems that you introduce like, because I don't think eco print is native Indonesian technique.
Yes.
Yeah, and you kind of like combine it into and incorporate it into local traditions and like trying to come up with something fresh and exciting, which I think is many people will be looking forward to.
Yeah, and I think it's the main I think the main connections that we try to bring up is using this, it's, let's say it's not native, it's foreign method, but using this ancestral dyes. So for example, like maybe outside of Indonesia, they tend to use eucalyptus for eco printing, but I just found out that also rainbow eucalyptus is native to Central Sulawesi. So it's something that is we can connect using another method, but with the how do you say, heritage sources that you have, what's available around you. And one of the things that I also love is collaborating with other interdisciplinary artists and artisans. Like, for example, at Meet the Makers, we have plenty of amazing makers, like from batik, weaving. And so I reach out to some of them, like, for example, Nuri in Yogyakarta right now is exploring batik on barkcloth with us, so that we can see like the possible, there's limitless, for exploring and staying true to our heritage, but also realizing that with this new, how do you say, new scenes and like sustainability perspectives, that we can all walk together and create conscious creativity together. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. That you are opening up to like different collaborations, and what's next, like in terms of what you do to promote the use of barkcloth? Because I don't think the consumers will like wrap around barkcloth on a daily
Yeah,
basis. So how
yeah.
would you introduce this material to them?
Well, actually, at the very, very beginning of productions that we made was actually creating bags and accessories using the barcloth as materials. And it wasn't without challenge at all. um, like, first of all, what we did was actually asking this artisans community, like, do you want to work with us? Do you want to explore instead of just coming to this community and purchasing their materials and then creating a products?
Yeah.
Because we wanted this to be collective products, collective treasures. And so at the beginning, they were doubting about it. Like the Ketua Adat was telling me that it's a kuno thing. It's an ancient thing. It's not interesting at all. And I said, you are actually very blessed. Like I myself have my ancestors from West Sumatra and Java, and I don't know how to weave socket. I do batik, but not like doing it on a daily basis. And so I said, but it's up to you. If you're open to creating this together, then I would really love to walk hand in hand with you. And so then we began by creating trials and errors with phone pouches, bags, and other accessories, even journals, making the barcloth as a cover of it. Some people also ordered like a wall tapestry for them, and then hand painted by the artisans in Bada. And so at the first test of after development of our trial and error, we brought some of these prototypes to them, and they couldn't believe that it's actually made out of their amazing fibers. Barcloth it is. And so I was saying to them, so are you excited about it? Do you now see your heritage fiber in a different ways and stuff? And so, yeah, and then we started to just exploring since 2015 until now. Although there are some people who coming to us and then asking if they can create like a collaborations, but making cloth. So I'm still not seeing that as something that is possible to do, but always open to just explore together, like creating our daily attires, because it's totally different fibers than fabrics.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Also, you do have offers of like people who want to work with barkcloth as a fashion material.
Yeah, I am open to that, but also I would like to have the opportunity to educate, like how to maintain this fair and fair collaborations with the artisans, because a lot of time we all know like some people are like, whether it's artists or brands, they create something but discrediting the artisans who made them. So it is still it's ongoing. Yeah.
It's still an ongoing discussion, but I really I really like that you actually managed to convince them that their tradition, that they found it kuno and ancient. It can be like refreshed for the modern audience, which I think is like very important in order to keep preserve the heritage.
Yes, absolutely.
Are there any other materials that you're working on, or just these two primarily at the moment?
So on textiles, previously we also use like modern fabrics, like for example silks and then cotton. But in the past 2 years, we've been shifting slowly into working with pineapple fibers from West Java, and then tea silk or eri silk from Yogyakarta. They make it, and Sesar Gedok hand-woven textiles from Tuban in East Java, and also the possibility to create a naturally dyed textiles with the community in Nusa Penida, for example, there, because they grow some cottons too there, and yeah, it's in our home island.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of things are happening in Bali. It's just that as
Yeah.
a Balinese myself, I have not actually gone deeper, which is something that should be rectified soon.
But it's what really beautiful about textile and fibers world, you know, like you get reconnected to your heritage textiles. Maybe like in the near future, I myself now still learning about all these ancestral heritage. There's a lot of them, so we cannot really absorb in just a couple days. Yeah.
Yes, it's not. And you mentioned that you have Sumatra, was it Minang lineage?
Yes, Minangkabau.
Okay. And yep, so that's how you get reconnected as well.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the initiatives that you include in your process to ensure sustainability in the production?
We, at the beginning, we just like common practice in the production world, usually, we want to create this, so we need these materials. But I mean, creating, I think having a small enterprise is also, it's like going to school again. So you like learning process every day. And we began to switch the process. I think it was back in 2018. We tend to see what materials are available at the moment, and not only in terms of the fibers or the fabrics or the barkcloth, but also the natural dyes that are available right now. So we now have this flow called productions follow materials instead of materials follow productions. I think it's also something that I love to always informing to our partners and clients who would like to, let's say they want to work with us to dye some fabrics and how this many meters, but we always being honest and transparent, like the capacity and also the materials availability right now. So it's not going to be overproductions. So I think that's like one of the keys that we as a conscious creative to have to manage in our creative process. Yeah.
Yep. I think that it also ties back to about working with the artisans themselves, because we do not just want to buy the materials and produce it myself. I think that is part of that collaboration and the openness to work with them to think out all these different processes.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something about production follow materials. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
This is actually a term that I often hear in the architecture world. They say form follow function or function follow form. So I apply that in my practice that, okay, the production that we do should based on the material availability. Or like in our case with the barkcloth artisans also, it has to be based on their current circumstance. Like for local custom, for example, if there is mourning in the community, then they're not allowed to produce any barkcloth within 7 days. Or if it's a long dry season, then maybe it's not possible for them. Long rainy season, then it's not possible for them to produce anything. So instead of like going on, the materials have to be exactly what we need to be in producing something, we try to switch it. It's not easy, especially when it's working with other practitioners like artists or like brands who already have set their exact production timeline. Like this has to be finished like within 2 months and these quantities. So I think it's just communication is like the first thing that we need to be clear and just very transparent about the process, so they also have a better understanding about this. Yeah.
So how do you work with different partners or designers then?
For example, I have this. I have a friend in Denpasar, for example, and they're actually the name is the Bali Curator, and they have clients who are looking for artisans who can create natural dyes or plant dyes, and they usually give them a list of options. Like, because in Bali now we have, I think it's about 5 or 6 dye houses that we have on the home island, and we're just collaborating with people who just resonate with our practice, and it's not always going to be smooth, but I think that's the interesting part in growing and evolving. But also, one of the things that is quite challenging for some people in working with Cinta Bumi is that we have this limit of capacity because we honor the principle of making only small batch. For example, for fabric dyeing, we can only take 20 meter maximum per month. This is not large at all. Maybe for productions like making ready-made clothing, it's going to be hard, only 20 meters. But we want to be very, very attentive to the quality of the dyes, and also just taking it slow in reality. Yeah.
So definitely a lot of well, first I guess they will need to understand in terms of the production process as well as the material availability, and to expect like all these different delays and to incorporate the materials into their design versus having a set requirement and specifications to be forced onto you guys. Oh, I have to produce this kind of cloth with this texture or thickness. I would believe that's the there must be a so-called connection in the first place before the project even begins.
That's true. Yes.
And on the flip side, what some practices that you might find it interesting but you have not actually implemented in terms of sustainability?
What practices that
you wish to implement but you have not done so, like the wish list to even be more sustainable?
Yes, actually, I would love to. How do you say? Is it expand the right word? But like I would. We grow our own dye garden, by the way, for eco printing, but for immersion dyeing, we still source it, and we source before. Like at the beginning of our practice, we tend to source it in suppliers without really knowing or understanding where the traceability of the dyes, for example. But it's fortunately to in the past 2 years we've connected to some people who are really, really generous, and also really being open to share about suppliers who can be traceable. For example, we source the indigo from the community in West Raya in East Bali, and also for the Simplocos, we modern all our fabrics and barkcloth by using the loba leaves, the Simplocos, not using alum sulfate since 2017, and source it from the Bali Foundation, who work together with the farmers and weavers in Flores and Sumba. And what I would love to apply that I haven't done yet is actually to manage to have like a more integrated natural dye garden, for example, and also to grow our own barkcloth trees, maybe just for vocabularies here. We have about 5 plants in the studio, but I think it's not really not enough yet because we need to regenerate more than we produce, like I think it's something that it is my big wish list, and hopefully later this year also we can find a land where we can grow all these plants, and then just having it as a communal space where people can also source the traceable dyes. Yeah.
Yes, that would be very, very interesting. Kind of like what do you call it? The permaculture, the different plants in the same plot of land.
Yeah.
That brought me one question. So the plants for the barkcloth are actually what do you call it? Farm and harvested, or they are actually like from the forest? That is.
They are invasive. So they're invasive. They're actually categorized as bushes, not really plants. So, this is also bring me to an interesting story. About 2 years ago, I met a lecturer from West Java who's also researching about this, and he said that in Bali, the paper mulberry barkcloth was actually the bark paper. So I found someone, 2 people actually, who are still practicing creating bark paper here in Bali, and it's called ulantaga here. And the ulantaga plants are actually just invasive. If you remember the road to Bedugul and Baturiti, they're all growing there, but no one really knows what it's for. So it's only for pakan ternak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Also, they actually just I don't know, like harvested, like wild plants that you just
Yes. Yeah. So the reason why I said I needed to find a land is because our dye garden is not in our studio but in my house. So in my house I planted in a pot. So so it's not in an open land which they can grow invasively. But in a pot they're just really limited.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. What are the different challenges that you have while running Cinta Bumi Artisans?
The real challenges is, I think there are several, but I think what I'd like to point, since we're talking about barkcloth and also fair collaborations, one of the challenges is that the more people actually notice you and your work, sometimes we found that not everyone really has a good, how do you say, mission. So when we went to Bada Valley like last January, we had, because we did a monitor and evaluation with the artisans, and they told me that there were a couple times people came to the Bada Valley, and then going to artisans' house and try to purchase their barkcloth, and then try to bargain in a very unreasonable price, like for example, 20, even 30% of the price. And to make, for example, the barkcloth skirt, it takes them to make for about a month. And but they tended to use my name or use Cinta Bumi name as their friends. So I think it's it's still a challenge, but it's something that we cannot control, because so what we need to strengthen is actually to keep checking in with the artisans, like, so that they don't always believe, or they don't always they don't always accept any treatment from people just because they say they know me, or they say they know this people or that people. I think it can happen to anyone. And so that's the first challenge about working fairly with communities. And the secondly is also I tend to find sometimes with clients, for example, that has a very limited deadlines and wants the perfect quality, but also with a low price. So it's I think it's a challenge for a lot of artisans,
people, yes.
And I think we're all resonate and relate with that. Yeah.
But how do people find the artisans? I mean, they are not in a very big city.
They are not in a very big city, actually, but with travels, with the transportations, they can still reach it. So, for example, I would elaborate this. So, from Bali, if you want to go to Bada Valley, you have to take a plane either to Palu or Makassar, and then from there you need to take another flight to Poso. And from Poso, you will need about 6 to 8 hours on the road to the Bada Valley. And in Palu or in Poso or in Makassar, there are tour guides who are actually knowledgeable about the area, but because it's a part of Lorelindo National Park, and people always come there for research, for nature trekking. So that's how. And I personally, and Cinta Bumi Artisans as organization don't work exclusively with the artisans. So we say that we don't really make the kind of MOU that restrict them or that make them unable to work for other people or work with someone else. But what I'm highlighting here is why don't, if you want to work with artisans, why don't you also do it fairly and properly and appropriately with based on the genuineness or the mission that you actually have, instead of like you know what I mean. It's complicated, but it's a real something that really happened.
Yeah, definitely. And I would also think like to communicate with the artisans themselves, like the different approaches that people might have, so that they can be more careful when they are partnering people next time. And on your second point on the market having a very tight deadline with very below the market price. I mean, they always say that the trifecta of the price, quality, and speed, you can only choose two of them. You cannot get things of a high quality at a cheap price at a very fast time.
Yes, that's very true. But we are also very, very blessed and grateful because we partner with also a lot of people who are really just understanding and very open to learn about this. I mean, this is a reintroduced craftsmanship, right? For like natural dyeing, it was not really hype like about 10 years ago, but then now I think it's with the climate change, with the, especially with the pandemic, and then people started to just realize that, okay, maybe we have to change through our clothing, our food consumption, and other things.
Yeah, exactly. How's the response so far, specifically for your products and your offerings?
Actually, beautiful. Actually, that's quite unexpected. So that's why this is one of the main things that we've been considering in the past couple of years, is that to open a space for creating workshops so people can learn. And right now, the workshops and courses that we run are only about natural dyeing and eco printing. Yeah. And I don't know when we will be able to travel freely again. I actually want to be open also for people who learn about barkcloth, so they can have a trip with us to go there and then just see by themselves. I mean, I can make barkcloth, but it's a totally different different atmosphere and different feelings, you know, when you really see it being done by the people who are actually have honored the heritage since they were not born yet. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely cannot wait to fly again. And, are the audience mostly like the local Indonesians, or are they overseas?
Before it was more overseas, but we're really happy that now we have plenty of audience that are actually our fellow Indonesians, and they are really keen to learn and know more about the barkcloth. And I think it's also wonderful to see some artists or new artisans. Thanks to Instagram, we found also people and make friends with them who are also creating barkcloth, who are also creating natural dyes in a very sustainable way. And yeah, and I think it's just
nice.
really beautiful,
where are they?
Like
the one who are making barkcloth?
Making barkcloth, like for example, in West Java there is someone who's been making that Kang Mufid. I mean, he's already like for decades he does it. And then I found this artist, his name is Faris. He's also making barkcloth and also wayang beber made out of the barkcloth. So it's it's a revival of this heritage. Not just about the barkcloth physically, but the intangible skills that they're reviving.
And bro, is barkcloth as the materials themselves, and the one after that as well, as you mentioned, like the wayang from barkcloth. That's like really interesting too. I guess we are almost towards the end of our conversation. Probably can you share with us what are some of your ongoing projects, or what we can expect from Cinta Bumi Artisans in the near future?
Ongoing sneak peek. Ongoing process is actually we're creating something with barkcloth, and I hope to launch this project actually in August. Also, we're preparing an exhibition and collaborating with some artists and artisans in Australia for weaving and eco printing. So I can't really elaborate yet what the project is, but that's something that we're working on. And in terms of like internally, we'd like to share like a virtual tour and also workshops online, because that's just what's more accessible right now when people cannot really travel here and to learn. But I think the good side is doing an online courses or workshop is that you can actually see closely about the available plants and materials that you have around you from your kitchen and stuff. So that's something that we can all look forward to in the near future.
Yes. And final questions. If you can sum up the few words that you have about our sessions today, be it hope for Cinta Bumi Artisans or messages for the audience.
Yeah, I think it's important to always have like a strong reminder about why we're here, why we're actually creating these heritage treasures. And is it because we want to be, for example, in my case, is it because I want to reconnect to my ancestral path in artisanal craftsmanship? Or is it because we value our contribution as individual and for collective through the cloth that we make, the cloth that we wear? And this also brought us to share about conscious creativity, where we can start to switch the perspective, like I said, instead of doing overproductions and then sourcing plenty of materials, we can also start to think about what if it's the other way around, like we're regenerating our materials and the productions can follow what's available, but also still practicing very, very fair collaborations with our fellow artisans, artists, and other people. So I hope that's clear enough.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much for the final message. Definitely, we have this program aNERDspective to talk and to learn new perspectives from other textile related topics.
Right.
So yeah, and you mentioned something about just tweaking, like form before function or function before forms gives a totally different thinking and consideration. Yeah. So I think that's one of the interesting points that we have today.
Yes.
Yeah. Once again, thank you so much, Novi, for dropping by today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching or listening to today's episode of aNERDspective. I hope you learned as much as I did. If you like this interview, do check out our previous chat with other guests over on our IGTV or on our website. And do follow us at aNERDgallery on our social media, Facebook and Instagram, to find out more about our latest events and happenings. And until next time, stay safe and take care.